This would also probably interest some of my colleagues. How about this essential psychotherapy which you have been so involved in? We saw the need for psychotherapeutic work inside the meditation work. So for practitioners involved in meditation and practicing the Dharma, it felt absolutely necessary to begin focusing much more on the emotional processes, the hidden emotional structures, including childhood trauma or childhood experiences, all of that which is not easily accessible with the conscious mind, the thinking mind, and all of that which is potentially so disturbing that the meditator will unconsciously do everything to avoid it, because they become very sneaky, very clever in kind of going around the hot issues, the delicate areas in the recesses of one's mind. And the meditators, after a while, not everyone, but those who have it easier with meditation, they know how to install themselves in a calm, safe place, not touching on underlying structures which actually will then continue for the whole rest of their life, into the future, until they're being addressed. So to address that, it is helpful to either do more intensive therapeutic work or do therapeutic work plus living in relationships, something that is challenging those hidden areas. And the second need was that psychotherapists involved in awareness practice, they wanted more support to make their professional activity into a Dharma practice, into a liberating, awakening practice. And they wanted support in how to make that activity into an insight practice, into a practice of true compassion, not superficial, not artificial compassion, how to make that a lifelong practice of awakening into who we truly are. So these were the two motivations that were in the beginning. And then we got together with, in the beginning I remember, 12 Dharma teachers, Lamas and teachers of different traditions, 12 psychotherapists of different traditions, and started talking. And that itself was very interesting, how we had to cross over into different areas of understandings, how we had to overcome hesitations, fear of contact, fear of being infected by the concepts of others, and so on, like all of that very interesting until we found out no danger anywhere. Actually very helpful. The more we truly learn from each other's personal experience, the better it is. And also the conceptual frames of psychotherapy and Dharma can match very well. Of course, we dug deeply into this notion of developing a sane, stable self as opposed, seemingly opposed, to the insight into non-self, and found out, for example, that the more insight into the non-self is there, the more stable the person, the personality, in a good way, becomes in this world. The more fluid, the more integrative, the more compassionate, loving, and so on. All these qualities, they emerge because of less clinging to an imaginary idea of self. All of these This took 7 years. 7 years of regular encounters until my very good friend Wolfgang Erhard had the courage to say, let's found an institute where this is communicated to others in a non-sectarian way, not Buddhist while being Buddhist, so Buddhist in the true sense of the term, talking about experience, teaching, communicating what actually helps, and inviting psychotherapists and Dharma teachers from different directions, traditions to involve with the project. And now we are 10 years later, after the foundation. We have, right now as I speak, in 2021, we have more than 100 people in training right now. For the therapists, the training is 1.5 years. For the non-therapists, it's 3 years of training with several hundred hours each. And we have first good results. We also have included it here in the Grüner Baum, in the Green Tree Ekayana Institute, in our meditative work also, to my satisfaction. It's very, very helpful to have that awareness of emotional dynamics spread in the house, in the community. So even those who are not participating in any of these trainings, they are somehow aware, and everyone looks more into these darker, more shadowy areas of one's being. So that would be like how it is right now. It is spreading into different languages. It's been first German, then came the French side, now is the English side, and the Portuguese training in essential psychotherapy in Brazil is already strongly in the coming, you can say. The foundations are there, and I hope it spreads everywhere, and it does not need to be controlled by us. It needs to be controlled by a good understanding of the basics. It involves training people as psychotherapists, but of course in every country one needs to have the right to exercise. Now once that is given, then with that approbation, with that legal authorization to treat others, then comes the wish to learn, and then such a 3-year curriculum would be excellent to learn that. Now, we also have the professional training for those who have already thousands of hours of working with clients. They don't need to learn so many therapeutic skills. They want to learn more about how that training and awareness, loving kindness, and so on, how the Dharma, the Buddhist tradition, how that could have a helpful influence on their professional practice and on their clients. So they have a shorter training, and then we have a group of people also who kind of offer this training to themselves, not intending to become therapists. They actually pretend to become therapists because in the process they become better therapists of themselves. So that's also maybe 1/3 of those in the 3-year training, I guess. At least 1/3 is motivated by this. Yeah. The others want to be actively helpful. Actually, if I were to formulate my wishes for how Dharma teachers are being trained, I would suggest that everyone does some psychotherapeutic training. It does not need to be essential psychotherapy, like Jack Kornfield, a famous Vipassana meditation teacher who has a very broad understanding. He encouraged his students who wanted to become Dharma teachers to engage in somatic experiencing, and you could take any of those therapeutic schools which inspires you and train with that. But as a Dharma teacher, that will make it so much more obvious why the definition of Dharma practice is to clear the way, to purify the emotional veils. Because there is a definition of what is awakening. It is when all emotional veils are cleared up, all the emotional obscurations are cleared up, and when all the cognitive obscurations are cleared up. Now the cognitive obscurations are clarified through these insight practices, our assumptions about reality, and that comes increasingly, but a little bit later in practice. In the beginning we are completely concerned, and Buddhist meditation is intended to work with all the emotional habitual patterns and to dissolve them. And psychotherapy is helping exactly with that. So psychotherapy based on experience, for as long as it is not a belief system, but actually based on experience and helps to open the mind, make it more fluid, open the heart, then for me it is Dharma. Psychotherapy is Dharma because it is motivated by helping people, by truly helping them. There is this basic motivation of offering one's time to others, supporting them instead of controlling them or influencing them, secretly manipulating them. All of that is absent in psychotherapy. It should be. And so that's Dharma in action. It is limited because usually it does not carry over into individual practice at home. It is limited to a few years in your life. Of course, some people continue for a whole life, but it's not the psychotherapeutic interaction that will be the source of complete liberation and awakening. That's not the intention. It's normally to really deal with a set of emotional patterns and to become more free and more understanding. So it's like, you can say, it's I would have said it's like a preliminary, but this is also not true. I benefited from doing intensive psychotherapeutic work at a time when I was already teaching as a Lama for more than 20 years. So, because I hadn't faced my childhood trauma, I wasn't even aware I had one. I somehow skillfully navigated around it. There were hints. Now, with what I have experienced now, I could have given them a little bit more attention, because they were poking their nose, this pattern of self-defense and distrust and proud control and so on, all of that, which was the outcome, like this, the symptoms of the underlying fear and so on. That was, they were there, the signs. But I was so well in Mahamudra meditation and open and relaxed that I could navigate around until a very loving relationship, which was also difficult, not only loving but also difficult, actually stimulated those points, like they were stimulated in my relationship a few months old when I was a baby with my parents. So it is not a preliminary. It can be used anytime. No Dharma teacher is too old to use psychotherapy. Yes, if you need it, you use it and you offer it to yourself. So it's nice. It's good. Don't be afraid of it. If you're afraid of it, it's a sure sign that you have something to hide. So, and if as a psychotherapist you're afraid to enter the Dharma, It's a sure sign that you need it. Well, yeah, it is. You will see there's probably a fear to be a little bit shattered in your belief systems and convictions and so on. Most Tibetans would really need psychotherapy, especially the Tibetan Lamas. Yes. Not all, but what I have heard from among them when they were talking freely to me, they have so much jealousy and pride going on among themselves that they need group processes, teamwork, psychotherapy, some of the tulkus which I have been together with. Tulkus are reincarnations, like that's a person who is recognized in a Buddhist monastery in Tibet as being the continuation of the mind stream of a famous yogi in the past. And these children are brought up under special conditions, but so many have received such harsh treatment and so early separated from their mothers that you can see, you can hear, you can witness the scars of the emotional trauma easily. They are not balanced emotionally. They have learned skills of looking balanced, but they are not. And when they talk openly about it, they admit to it. And they would make good use of therapeutic help, because all of that can be dealt with using loving awareness in the context of being accompanied by someone, loving, opening the space, holding the space. Psychotherapy is nothing else but the practice of loving awareness, and with a lot of wisdom and skill. So, yes, I don't know the other Asian countries and practitioners. My exposure to Indian teachers, yes, I would say yes, they a lot of them would also need it. Burma, that was too short a contact. Japan, I don't know enough, but I know some Japanese roshis or authorized Dharma teachers who have come to me with great emotional problems. They were already named roshis. Yes. So there's no exception, actually. Exception is only someone who has a very fluid, simple mind and is completely free. Like I would never have sent Gendun Rimpoche to a psychotherapist. That was definitely not necessary. This guy was free. But I've heard from others what was actually going on in a typical Tibetan 3-year meditation retreat center. It's awful. It's in no way better than us Westerners. We are complicated in some areas, more easy in other areas. We have learned a little bit more about teamwork, but we have our fears and hang-ups. But basically you can see it by looking how famous Dharma teachers interact with each other, with how the monasteries interact with each other, how the responsibles, if they truly work together, if they have hesitations, if they denigrate, is that the English word? How they denigrate, how they put down, if they have this need to put down other traditions, why? And all of that, these are emotional patterns behind. And it's the need for self-assurance where there is no natural self-esteem. And all of that points to underlying emotional issues. All this fighting between lineages, traditions, monasteries, and so on. It's just a pointer to the emotional barriers. I'm aware that some people listening to this will be shocked, because it's difficult for them to envisage that a realized teacher could still have emotional hang-ups and strong emotional patterns, dependencies even, addictions, sexual addictions, alcohol addictions, whatever, power addiction, pride, jealousy, they would be shocked to hear that because it does not fit with what they want to believe. You know, we have talked about belief in a different video, but we believe what feels good. So our belief systems are an exact mirror of what we appreciate as feeling good. Now, if we believe that our holy teachers are through and through holy and have no trace of emotional obscuration, this reflects our need to have them pure. But maybe we should check reality, because it will preserve us from a shock later on when we discover just how human they are, and how some of them have actually found a very good way of being human and being more and more free in being human until they are not caught by emotional patterns anymore. So some of them are truly free. But they would be the last ones to say that they are pure. I remember Gendun Rimpoche, how he used to talk about himself. He said, what you want to venerate this bag of emotions, you know? It's like, this is like skin, outside, bones, and so on, inside only emotions. And but this was how he was talking about himself. But actually, probably in order to show us how we could perhaps consider ourselves, in those 11 years, also being very close to him in the last 3 years, where I was allowed to take care of him as a homeopathic doctor. So I went through difficulties with him, but there was no trace of emotional involvement. In all the encounters which I had with him, there was no trace of that. And like this, I think to have met a handful of people where this could be said, and I have met an armful of Dharma teachers where this cannot be said. Yes, so let's live up to it. I have to deal with my emotional veils and patterns, and I sometimes feel affected, I feel sad, I can feel fear, I can feel pride. All of that is there, and I'm very happy to see that becoming less. But I don't have to pretend to be free of that. Actually, it's not even interesting. And my attitude has changed very much. I don't think fear has to be gone or pride has to be gone. It's good enough if I see its true nature. And then, as Trungpa Rinpoche said, it becomes an ornament. We wear our emotions as an ornament. It's like nothing to hide. We can be there with the emotion, but we are not identified with the emotion. When it arises, it also disappears. And it's the speed, the quickness of its dissolution which indicates just where we are in the process. So I don't care if a highly realized teacher or a great master has an emotion. I don't care. I just look how quickly does it dissolve. Does this person identify with it? Does this person act out of that emotion? Or does he or she laugh about it? Not identified, can easily excuse herself, himself for it, because of maybe this was a little surprising for others that such a moment of anger or sadness welled up, you know? Okay, fine. Not being caught. So I don't need that ideal of the perfect teacher. I just need someone with enough insight to see what's going on. I have a sign on my door. When people come in, I wish that they read this. It says, by the way, I'm not perfect and I'm not even working on it. So that is very indicative of my own process, because I had to abandon the desperate wish to be perfect. This was like trying to prove to myself that I'm a better guy than most people think. or that I'm not like my father or something like this, like proving this to myself. And so I've abandoned that, and I don't want people walking into my room having a personal talk, trying to imagine that they sit in front of a perfect person or someone wanting to be that. So, big relief for myself. Actually, it was early, but the way I remember in these late 30s, when I was young Lama, I remember that it became crystal clear that I don't have to become a good Lama and not a perfect Lama. I just have to become a Lama. That means someone honestly taking care, because Lama means Lana Mepe Ma in Tibetan, the unsurpassable mother. So a mother which is not only taking care of her own children, but of everyone walking through the door. So this caring attitude, open, generous, yes, I can live that, and I don't have to be perfect. I don't have to be the perfect Lama. And that was a big relief for me when consciously, and then moving deeper into my different layers of patterns, when I consciously abandoned that idea to prove to the world how perfect I am.